What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seattle Seahawks news, rumors, updates, all things Seahawks content. Today, we're asking the question, should the Seahawks add another pass rusher? And if so, should it be TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson? Plus, we talk about one analyst who thinks regression is likely for the Seahawks, and we talk about defensive line rankings. Where does the Seahawks D-line stack up against the rest of the NFL? All that and more right here today on Seahawks Now. But first, if you like what you see, make sure you hit the like button down below. It really helps the channel out. Subscribe to the channel for more content. And as always, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another breaking news alert. All right, we get things underway. The Seahawks could add a pass rusher. That is what Seattle Seahawks on SI writes. And according to Connor Benintendi, the Seahawks should now have two superstar pass rushers on their trade radar. Now, if you've been listening to this channel, you know that there have been two on my radar. That's Trey Hendrickson and TJ Watt. And that's exactly what Benintendi writes. He says, in addition to Cincinnati's Trey Hendrickson, the Seahawks should now be looking at another superstar edge rusher who is unhappy with his current contract and could be actively shopped around the league. According to Sportsnaut's Andrew Buller-Russ, 93.7 The Fan radio host Mark Kaboly stated the Steelers are obviously inquiring to see what that might be in reference to the return the franchise could get in a trade of TJ Watt. That's right. TJ Watt, 31 years old by the end of the 2025 season. He's currently in the last year of a 4-year, $112 million deal, so he's getting paid just about $28 million a year. TJ Watt obviously wants to be paid way more than that. He probably wants to go into the upper 30s or even $40 million a year range. That is about what he is projected for, right? That is what the market value is for guys of his caliber. That's what Max Crosby is getting paid. That's what Micah Parsons is soon going to get paid. It's what Myles Garrett's getting paid. And yeah, Pittsburgh, they're going to have to pay Watt or trade him. Now, Pittsburgh has the fifth least cap space this season, but they have the fourth most available room next season at $84.5 million. So if they did want to give Watt a new deal, they do have the cap room to do it, but they haven't done it yet. And that's what is curious about this, is that they keep saying we're going to get a deal done, we want to have TJ Watt, but yet at the same time, they haven't got this deal done yet. And the more they wait, the longer it feels like it's going to take, especially because, look, for a guy who is past 30, you start to wonder, do they see a decline? Do they think he's going to start to decline soon, and is that why they're holding off? Do they not want to pay him what he thinks he's worth? Is he asking for too much? Those are the types of questions that we're wondering right now. And the more that I think about it, the more I think that, yeah, a TJ Watt move would make a lot of sense for the Steelers. Now, on the other hand, they're supposedly in win-now mode. Now, I don't know what win-now mode means for them. They just signed Aaron Rodgers. Is that really a win-now move? I guess. But sure, let's say they do decide to trade him. Well, if they do, the Seahawks, yeah, they should definitely inquire. The Seahawks have the cap space. They have $30 million in cap space in 2025. They have $55.89 million in cap space for next year. So, yeah, if you acquire Watt or Hendrickson, you probably have the best pass rush in the NFL. It means you don't have to rely as much on Uchenna Nwosu, who really just does not stay healthy very much. And I think that really helps. Now, ultimately, what would my preference be between Watt and Hendrickson? I think this is a really, really tough call. They're both about the same age. I actually think I would go with Trey Hendrickson. I do. I think Trey Hendrickson is a slightly better player than TJ Watt at this point. I think it's super, super close. I think both of them would make a lot of sense. But if you look at the numbers, especially from last year, I mean, Trey Hendrickson was so good last year. He was probably the best defensive player in the AFC, I think. Last year, Trey Hendrickson led the league with 17.5 sacks. He was an All-Pro. He was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, 19 tackles for a loss, 13 assistant tackles, 46 combined tackles, 36 quarterback hits. If you look at the numbers, TJ Watt last year, and again, they are the same age. They're both 30 years old. Last year, TJ Watt had 11.5 sacks. Last year, he had 27 quarterback hits, which is 9 less than Trey. He had the same amount of tackles for a loss, and he did have more tackles. He had 61 tackles total. Hendrickson only had 46. And TJ Watt, I will say this, he forced 6 fumbles last year. 6 fumbles and 4 passes defended. On the other hand, Hendrickson only forced 2 fumbles. He defended 6 passes. I think it's really close. I think they're both really good players. At the end of the day, yeah, I'm going Trey Hendrickson by just an inch because I think he has a little more spring in his step, especially when it comes to the pass rush. TJ Watt is definitely more disruptive. He's probably going to force more fumbles. He's going to recover more fumbles. He's going to defend more passes, might even get an interception. But Trey Hendrickson, when it comes to getting to the quarterback, which is their primary job, he did a better job of that last year. He had 6 more sacks and 9 more quarterback hits, and they had the same amount of tackles for a loss, despite the fact that Watt had more tackles overall. So yeah, I think Trey Hendrickson just a tiny bit better, but I wouldn't care. Either of these guys makes your team elite. And we're going to talk about the D line in a sec. But first, I want to read one article from an analyst why he believes the Seahawks will regress in 2025. This one is something we've covered quite a bit. A lot of analysts just don't believe in the Seahawks. This is a Matt Johnson at Sportsnaut. He says Seattle just doesn't have the infrastructure to help Sam Darnold thrive. Here's what he says. He wrote, 5 teams most likely to regress in 2025. Here's who he writes. He has the Chiefs on there. Okay, not sure if I agree with that one. They've been to the Super Bowl 3 straight times. I guess you could say they're probably not going to win 15 games again, but when a team's been to the Super Bowl 3 straight times, you're basically saying if they don't make the Super Bowl, they're going to regress. I mean, okay, sure, but it's really hard to make 4 straight Super Bowls. So I don't know if that feels kind of cheap. Then they have the Commanders on there as a team that's going to regress. Okay, sure. I mean, they could regress, and they might, but I also think that they have a lot of youth, and they have put together a good season last year. They think the Steelers are going to regress by adding Aaron Rodgers. Again, not sure about this one. They won 9 games last year, maybe 10. I don't know if you regress much from 9 or 10. I mean, they never seem to lose more than 8 games a year. They haven't ever since Mike Tomlin's been their coach. They also have the Lions as a team that's going to regress. I can see that again. I definitely think that's probably their best call. But then they also have the Seahawks. So yeah, okay, look, I mentioned the other teams because I want to point out that the person who wrote this article, I don't think he's very smart, right? Matt Johnson, all respect to you, I don't think that you're very smart. You chose 2 teams in the Commanders and Steelers who I just don't really think they're going to regress much. And you chose the Chiefs, which is probably like the easy way out, just saying, well, I mean, if they don't make the Super Bowl, that means they're going to regress. Sure, but whatever. I think that feels really cheap to me. And then you have the Seahawks on there. Here's where he writes. He says Darnold is in an uncomfortable situation. It's a recipe for disaster. They think our offensive line is one of the worst in the league. I think it's definitely better than it was last year. I think we've improved a lot. And they are basically saying they think we're going to get the Panthers version of Sam Darnold instead of the Vikings version. We don't have what the infrastructure that the Vikings had. They think we're going to win no more than 7 games. He says we're going to lose. Yeah, wow, that's rough. If 7 is our max. I disagree, man. I disagree. I think the Seahawks, look, we're not going to win 4. I think we forget how good Darnold was last year. Sam Darnold last year won 14 games in Minnesota. Now, the Seahawks might not have as good of an offensive line. That's true. The Vikings have a better O-line. The Vikings also had an offensive head coach. I don't know if he's better than McDonald, but he's an offensive guy. And the Vikings also have better receivers. That's true. But we have good receivers too. I'm not trying to say, Jackson Smith-Njigba is a dog. And then you think about it, our defense is probably better than the Vikings was, and our division that we play in is easier, right? We don't have to deal with the Lions and the Packers in our division. We have the Rams and the Niners, but I don't think they're as strong as the Lions and Packers. And when I think about that, I think to myself, can Sam Darnold win 14 games here? Probably not. Was that an anomaly that also really, really helped having Justin Jefferson around? Yeah, sure. But can he win 10? Absolutely. Can he win 11? Probably. I mean, the idea that Sam Darnold, he's not, people think, oh, Darnold had a good year last year, but he's going to regress. No, Darnold had an elite season last year in the regular season, outside of one game, which was the final week of the season. He was elite. I don't think he's going to be elite again, but I think he can be good. So yeah, I disagree. Anyways, let's move on. Last topic of the day. Where does the Seahawks defensive line rank in the NFL for 2025? Okay, this is the big question, because I keep saying I want us to add to the DL, but where do I actually think it ranked in the NFL? Looking at the numbers from last year, our defensive line is actually one of the best in the league. Byron Murphy, really, really good player. He's going to get even better, I think. Derek Hall last year had 8 sacks. We forget about this. Derek Hall, he's probably also going to improve. And Leonard Williams, the big cat himself, he had a phenomenal season last year, and nobody really seemed to notice. I mean, he was ranked like 98th in the top 100 NFL players list. Leonard Williams last year had 11 sacks, 28 quarterback hits, 16 tackles for a loss. He was 14th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He earned Defensive Player of the Year votes. That was his best season of his career. He had a career year at the age of 30. I don't think people realize how good he is. Plus, you got guys like Boye Mafe on there, who I think, if he can stay healthy, he can be really good. Last year, he had 6 sacks. The year before that, he had 9 sacks. Last year, he only started 11 games. And then the big question is Uchenna Nwosu and DeMarcus Lawrence. Can those two stay healthy? Because if they can, they're really good, right? Uchenna Nwosu, his 17-game average is 5 sacks, 15 quarterback hits, and 7 tackles for a loss. That's his 17-game average. The problem is he hasn't only played 17 games once in his career. He's only played it twice in his career, with 2021 and 2022. But with Seattle, his 17-game average actually gets even better. His 17-game average would be 7 sacks a season and 21 quarterback hits. That's over the last 3 years. So if he can stay healthy, he can be really, really good. And then there's DeMarcus Lawrence, who arguably could be even better, again, if he stays healthy. Again, health is a big one here because he hasn't been healthy. He wasn't healthy last year. But again, in his career, his 17-game average, he would average 7.4 sacks per game, 7.4 sacks per season, and 15.2 quarterback hits. Last year, he had 3 sacks in 4 games, if that makes you feel good. I hope we can get that version of him. He was also a Pro Bowler in 2023 and 2022. I mean, yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence is a good player, but again, he's 33, and will he stay healthy? That's the real question. With that all being said, I think this is a good defensive line, borderline great. I think this is a top 10 D line. I really do. I think the Seahawks have the capability of easily being top 10 in sacks, especially adding Lawrence to that group. I think it's probably around the 8th or 9th best defensive line in the league. Here's how you make it better. You trade for Trey Hendrickson and or TJ Watt. That's what you do. Not and, or. One of those two guys. You're not trading for both. But if you trade for one of those two guys, you make this an elite defensive line, and then all of a sudden, you're talking Super Bowl with this team. I think you really are. With that all being said, that's going to wrap things up for today. As always, hit the like button down below if you like what you see. Subscribe to the channel for more content. And until next time, as always, go Seahawks.